Hey, Foot Clan, before we start today's show, I want to tell you about another valuable fantasy football app that will help you dominate your fantasy league. You have got to download the free Sportsmanias app today. You get free real-time updates on your players to make smarter lineup decisions. You import your fantasy players with a click and get personalized feeds from fantasy football experts. Scoring opportunities, alerts directly to your phone. Sportsmanias brings you a new fantasy tool to give you an edge. We recommend it, so go check it out, the Sportsmanias app right now.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Happy Friday. Oh, it's a happy Friday for Peyton Manning.
It's happy Friday for all of us because that means it's Sunday in 2 days.
Welcome to the show. This is the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. I'm Andy Holloway. I'm joined by Jason Moore.
Howdy.
And Mike, the Fantasy Hitman, right?
Duty.
Howdy and duty. Yes, that is what I think your names should be.
Howdy and duty.
So we are fresh off a Thursday night game that was pretty exciting. Pretty fun game. Two really, really good defenses, in my opinion.
Yes.
Two pass rushes that just always got there is what I felt like when I watched that game last night. So, but plenty of fantasy implications from the game. I guess this would be a good time to say that I lost our bet.
What bet was that?
That was the Emmanuel Sanders versus Jeremy Maclin bet.
Was it close?
It was close until the second touchdown by Emmanuel Sanders. They had the same yardage, but no, Emmanuel Sanders scored twice, so I will officially accept this.
Splash.
I thought I wasn't going to get watered the entire year.
Oh, well, that didn't pan out. And we're recording those. I'm putting this on the air so everyone knows. We're doing this directly after today's show. We're paying the piper.
Great. Now that I have mine. That's good. That's good. Welcome to the show. We have a jam-packed Friday episode for you. We have news and notes. We have a fantasy forecast. We're going through the second half of the games in week 2. We have our new segment, Full Stream Ahead. We're going to talk about streamers. Yeah. We obviously recommended streaming quarterbacks and other positions during our draft season, so we want to provide you with our best bets for streaming options each week. And we have the Daily Dose segment, a daily fantasy sports segment with Chris Meany of the Fantasy Sports Network. And we're going to hit some mailbag, too. So, I mean, this is going to be a 4 or 5 hour show.
I'm ready.
Congratulations.
Right. Quick question for the day. Are you going after C.J. Anderson, or are you running away from him with your hands in the air screaming?
I am going after him.
Like that. Because there are a lot of people hitting this. The panic button.
Which is exactly why I'm going after him. I'm going after him for pennies on the dollar. I'm not sitting here going, ooh, I'm going to give up a lot for C.J. Anderson because he's going to get better. I'm saying, if I'm the owner, I'm freaking out. I just want to get something for him. So I'm going to try to get him for sure.
Now, I don't know if people remember this, but there was a running back, Edward Lacy.
Mm-hmm.
Last season, his first 2 games were horrific.
Really good
first 3
defenses.
You're right. His first 3, and it turned out he played 3 of the best running defenses in the league to start his season.
How did he finish? Did he do okay for himself?
He did okay.
Eddie Darwin Lacy Jr.
Really?
No Edward.
Oh,
just for the record.
All right.
But no,
Ed.
your point is well received, regardless of his official first name. He stunk in the beginning of the year. People started worrying about him. He had the concussion. He had the Seattle defense. He had some matchup problems.
The Lions and the Jets, I believe. But my point is this. C.J. Anderson was in the game during the final 2-minute drill to go down and score. That means they still have trust in him. That seems like that's an obvious Ronnie Hillman situation. But no, it was C.J. Anderson. Right now, Hillman has produced more yardage on the ground, but really they've both stunk.
That's the thing I want people to remember is if Hillman had come in and averaged 5 a carry and dominated, I'd be freaking out too.
Yeah, I would agree with
that. But the 2-minute drill, the usage, a tough defense, Hillman, his yards per carry isn't much different than what CJ did. and they haven't been able to run the ball. They're still finding themselves in the Kubiak offense. And so if you're worried, I think they're, CJ and Forsett were the two guys that we said had a chance at being troublesome first-round picks.
Right.
But I'm not worried.
No, I'm trying to acquire him. And if you watch the game, that whole Broncos offense, I mean, that was a very interesting game for Peyton Manning where he just looked awful.
You keep saying that.
To start the game, I thought he looked awful. He looked shaky, as in just he looked bewildered, as in he didn't really know what to do. Everything was just crumbling, and he didn't know how to fix it. And what it seemed like is then towards the second half, Peyton Manning said, I'm going to run the offense the Peyton Manning way, and I'm going to do this my way because I've been in the league for 35 years and been a pretty good quarterback. So he went with that, and that's when he started to succeed.
Is he older than Gary Kubiak, than the Kubes?
He's got to be.
I'm not joking. I heard the announcer. I rewound it and showed it to my wife. The announcer at one point called him Coobs.
No, he did not.
Swear to you. I've got it on DVR.
I love it.
We start.
That's ridiculous. That's funny. I'm sure he's been called that before. But, yeah,
Never.
I did say I thought Manning would be okay yesterday on the show, and he turned out to be okay, 3 touchdowns. He definitely could still drive the ball down the field if he had more than 1 second, because when Houston or Ali got in there, I mean, he just crumpled, like you said. And he had a couple opportunities to probably gain 20, 30 yards on these little dump-offs, and he couldn't complete the pass because he was so afraid of getting hit. Mm-hmm. And so there's still some – but, a new offense, adjustment period, wait and see with that. All that being said, no matter how much we like C.J. Anderson going forward, there are plenty of fantasy owners very, very disappointed with last night and feeling behind in week number 2.
Yeah, there's not much worse than seeing a bad performance on Thursday to start your week.
Yeah, always going up against the Denver defense.
And so
that didn't work too good.
I think we're all in agreement that Andy Reid needs to bench Jamal Charles immediately. He fumbled the ball
2 times.
You got to bench that guy.
Get rid of him. Drop him. If you've got Jamal Charles and you're in a league with me, drop him.
I say this ignoring the fumbles. Jamal Charles is
He's so good.
We were talking about that.
He's got to be the best running back, pure running back in the league from a versatility standpoint. Like Lynch can do certain things. Lacey, Lev Bell's got to be up there. But Jamal Charles does it all so well, and his change of direction, he gets like 4 extra yards on every play that anybody else would go down on.
There's no hole, and he zigzags his way
ridiculous.
for 7 or 8 yards.
He did cost him the game, though.
But really, he should be benched, right?
Of course, yes. Andy Reid will go back to the using him 5 times a game plan.
And get some more targets for Zeus, Andy Reid.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. He looked good, but I mean, hey,
great.
Jason said on the show yesterday, the guy he was going to have horrifically come back down to earth was Alex Smith, and he went from about, in our league's scoring system, a 31-point week to a 7-point week. So he came screeching down to earth and threw picks, which was not like him. All right, if you want to follow the show, you can do so on Twitter at the FFBallers. Visit the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, where you can submit questions to the show. We answer some of those each and every day. We also try to respond to them via email. And if you have an urgent question, you can submit them on there as well. Make sure you check out jointhefoot.com and join our fantasy football community. There are a lot of people on there, up over 400 now, that are chatting fantasy every single day. We're on there all the time, answering questions, talking to people. So check out jointhefoot.com. You can find us on Facebook, on YouTube, on the Fantasy Sports Network, and obviously on iTunes. So make sure you subscribe. And if you like the show, keep listening.
And leave a review.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice reviews really do help the show, and we appreciate them very much.
That is true. All right, let's get into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
All right, some quick hitting news here. We misspoke yesterday. Did we not?
This we did not misspeak because this is what was reported.
We said yesterday that he being Arian Foster, had been ruled out
by O'Brien. That O'Brien said he was out. Not that he.
That was a blurb on Roto World that they said Arian Foster was out.
Well, then O'Brien said specifically yesterday, we'll see. Now, nobody's expecting him to play, but the official ruled out is not true as of right this minute. And so I want to make sure our listeners understand that. He moved from O to doubtful on my ESPN rankings. So
ruins that IR spot.
If he's in,
no.
If he plays, you play him.
I don't know. I don't know right now. I mean, he's practiced 1 time, so I don't think I do.
I don't.
It
think
depends
he
on your
plays.
options, though. No, he's not going to play.
Right.
But La Canfora said week 3 he's back no matter what. I mean, that's like he's ready to go barring a setback. So we'll see. That is kind of a fluid situation. Another one that we need to pay attention to is the LaShawn McCoy situation. I have Carlos Williams, thankfully, in many of my leagues, but this is going to be a little shaky because he left practice with a hamstring injury. Rex Ryan came out and said, hey, he might play. He might not play. What's the latest?
He's practicing again today, but we're still early. And so if you are a LaShawn McCoy owner and you have a spot for Carlos Williams, I would look to add him. But you need to monitor this all weekend and get some news to make sure that Shady's going to play.
If you're not LaShawn McCoy owner and you've got just terrible people on your bench or you feel like you've got bad depth, go pick up Carlos Williams because Shady's been lingering injuries all off season. He's had them, and he's going to get a big workload. So I don't expect that this is the last time we're going to see, some problem in practice or on the game.
All right, so there are a number of other injuries, so we're going to play a game of in or out here.
What's it gonna be, McFly? Are you in or out?
Josh McCown, is he going to play?
Josh McCown, thanks to our good friends at SleeperBot, is out. Johnny Manziel starting.
Oh, that was reported?
Just now. Just broke.
Oh, interesting.
All right, Justin Forsett.
In.
LaShawn McCoy.
I think he
In.
plays.
Chris Ivory.
In.
Reggie Bush.
Out.
CJ Spiller.
In.
Julio Jones.
Julio in.
In.
Mike Evans.
In.
Golden Tate.
I think he plays.
Yeah.
T.Y. Hilton.
Out.
I think he's out. And T.Y. Hilton is a game time decision for Monday night. You need to have options available. Do not find yourself caught in this disaster if you have nowhere to go because he's Monday night.
It's really important to point that out because you can forget that it's a Monday game and then, oh no, I can't make a roster move.
Yep.
So start someone else. Assume he's out. I mean, if you have another good option,
Yes.
that's a tiebreaker for me. Is the fact that you don't know on Sunday whether or not Ty.
If I don't
it's a game
have
time decision.
If I don't have Moncrief along with Hilton, I'm going to start a safer option on Sunday.
Jordan Reed.
I think he plays.
Delaney Walker.
I think he
Out.
plays as well.
Okay.
And
Did you just say out, Jason?
Yeah,
Oh, you think he's out? Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah. That was pretty much the only disagreement on the whole thing. I think his sound a little bit worse. He hasn't been practicing that much. So
I have a quick hot take that I wanted to throw out real quick for teams because some teams are already struggling with the running back depth. If you have an IR spot or a place where you can put an out player, Cleveland Browns, I heard a Cleveland Browns reporter talking today, put Robert Turbin in your out position. He was talking about he would not be surprised at all to see Robert Turbin come back week 4, week 5, and take the starting job in Cleveland. I'm not saying he's going to set the world on fire, but if you are already having running back problems, here's a guy you can stash that could emerge into a starting running back position. Just throwing it out.
Great. That's great. People need to know that. That's a kind of advantage that is important. And speaking of which, you heard me mention it at the beginning of the show. I want to talk to you about the Sports Manias app for a second. Now, we do not just recommend any app on this show. I think you know that from listening to us. But we want the Foot Clan to have the best tools and really the ensemble of tools that a fantasy football owner has. It matters. And so it's time to dominate your league. Download the free Sports Manias app. This is a game changer for the diehard fantasy football fan. And they have a track record of being so. They're listed as a top 5 sports app in the country by USA Today. And so with Sports Manias, you get real-time updates on your players. You can make smarter lineup decisions. You can import from Yahoo, CBS, and ESPN and get personalized feeds for your team. And so this is not just breaking news. This is scoring opportunities. This is fantasy points for your players. This is the milestones that they pass. And you get alerts for every time that your players are in the red zone. And so this is another great fantasy tool to give you an edge. We recommend it to the Foot Clan. It's the most complete player feed that you can get to dominate your league. So check out the Sports Manias app. Download it now. It turns players into champions.
Champions.
with just a click. Just
Yeah.
a click, you download that app.
It's pretty easy.
Just a tap.
So Sports Manias, get your fantasy on, people.
Yeah, today things are always getting more and more just a click. It's a good feeling to be able to do things quickly and easily. And now you can also do everything you need to do postage-wise, mailing-wise, shipping-wise, just as easy with a click from your own desk thanks to Stamps.com. Stamps.com is what we use here to send out all of our memorabilia, all of our thank yous to our Foot Clan listeners. Stamps.com, it's available for PC or Mac. It's very easy. If you do shipping, you've got to use them. No more dealing with the post office and all the nonsense of, their hours of operation where it's like, I think they're open from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. sometimes.
Yeah, that's true.
The post office, I don't like going there. I prefer to sit at my desk, have the convenience, have a better price. We use Stamps.com personally, and right now you can use our promo code Footballers for a very special offer. You get a 4-week trial plus a $110 bonus offer. It includes a digital scale, which we have, which gives you exact calculation, and $55 free in postage. So don't wait. Go to Stamps.com before you do anything else. Click the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in Footballers. That's Stamps.com. Enter Footballers.
All right, it's time to get into the second half of the games for Week 2.
Fantasy Forecast.
You guys planning on watching any football this weekend?
Maybe a little bit.
Give or take.
I've got my butt warmed up.
Well, I know there's like a Matlock marathon that Jason's normally glued to.
I love that man.
I have a spot on my couch, and I think I'm ready to sit there for 12 hours.
Oh, I thought you were gonna bid. I thought you meant like an extra spot, and then you were gonna take bids from people to come and sit by you.
No.
He needs his
I
solitude.
watch football.
That's where he puts his hot wings.
Speaking of hot wings,
How did that work out?
success.
You got them?
Success. Yes, I got my hot wings
you look
yesterday.
so excited.
I got them. Everything was good. They gave me a discount on the pizza for the troubles.
Oh, good. So
Great
now
stuff.
you've been reconciled to this pizza joint,
Yes.
and are you going back?
Yeah, it's delightful. Cheeseheads in Arizona.
Got to bring
Cheeseheads.
those. Oh, wow. Shout out.
I gave them a
That's
plug.
not too bad. All right, 49ers at the Steelers. This will be an interesting game. We saw some surprises from the 49ers defense in week 1, and I thought their offense looked okay. Not Trent Dilfer level okay, but like normal okay. In fact, we have a 3-way fantasy bet between Colin Kaepernick, Mariota, and Tyrod Taylor. Do we not?
We do.
And I am taking Colin Kaepernick this week, and Jason.
And I think Kaepernick is a good option this week. I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
Yeah, from a streamer perspective.
Yeah, we saw the Steelers get torched by the Patriots, and not just torched as in they got outplayed, as in the Steelers had like they had no idea what they were doing on defense, just with new players.
that Gronkowski guy?
like, completely leaving guys uncovered. And I think Kaepernick can have a solid game.
All right, let me ask you some starts here. Obviously, Big Ben is a start if you've drafted him.
Yes.
Are you starting D'Angelo Williams this week?
I am not starting D'Angelo Williams this week. I think the 49ers defense is legit. I think that what happened to Minnesota was not all Minnesota, and that the Niners defenses looked good. They were great last year. They lost
Navarro
some pieces.
Bowman.
They lost some
Navarro
pieces,
Bowman.
yes.
Yes,
But then they were
Bowman's
great in
back.
the preseason and great in week 1. Why do we still have to say, but they lost, guys? They're terrible. So
Well,
I think it's hard to run on him. He's still the starter, and if you've got to start him, there's worse things to do, but I don't want to start
Is
him
Carlos
this week.
Hyde a top 5 option this week?
Ooh,
Yes.
I think he's
Check the rankings for us.
Yes.
Carlos Hyde is
I think I have him very, very high.
he's a top 5 for standard, and he's 7 in my PPR.
I believe I've got him 2 in standard and probably 5 in
Man.
So we're buying into the Hyde. I have him 3 right now.
The combination of that offensive line that looked like they were opening up holes,
Volume.
their dedication to running the ball, and the Steelers.
But this
Yeah.
this is a big test for a reaction to what we saw last Monday.
And I will say, from the tight end position, I think Vernon Davis and Heath Miller are both good streaming options.
I'd go with Heath Miller personally.
Sure, and Vernon was my start of the week at the tight end position. So it's not anything against Miller. I just have to stick to my guns with Mr. Davis. So let's move on to the Ravens at the Raiders.
You don't even want to talk to wide receivers?
We can talk to wide receivers.
Well, we need to talk about it. I think Bolden is a decent PPR option here. And I don't think we're starting Marcus Wheaton with the defense that the 49ers put up. But Bolden, if you're starting a 49ers wide receiver, I would like to start Bolden.
Yeah, Smith showed nothing. They've got to figure out how to get Torrey Smith involved. For now, you can't start him.
All right, the Ravens at the Raiders. Do we start any Raiders? I mean, Latavius Murray, you're rolling out there, right? Because of volume and just opportunity. If Carr's back, does the offense have a chance to succeed here? Because the Ravens were very good defensively last week.
I think if you have Latavius Murray or Amari Cooper, you kind of have to start them because you took them so high, so you probably don't have
I don't know about Cooper.
Yeah, I agree
Cooper.
with it.
Cooper is I don't personally want to start him, but I'm saying Cooper was a 4th, 5th round pick.
Most people are bringing Cooper questions that are flex related,
Yeah,
not start related.
In most of those situations, I like other guys over Cooper. I would start Latavius Murray. I'm worried about David Carr's thumb. I'm still a little bit worried.
If you have Crabtree on your roster, please remove him. And
come on.
No, I'm serious. Why would you keep Crabtree? Give me one reason to keep Crabtree on your roster.
Because you
want the 2 on the Raiders?
You like seafood, and you like that his name has a crab in it.
Okay.
He gave you a reason.
Yeah, I was going to say I'd rather have Alan Hearns than Crabtree.
I definitely would rather have Hearns.
So flipping to the other side, we saw a very, very poor offensive performance by Baltimore last week. Steve Smith was non-existent, despite the fact he normally starts the year very well, and I think he's a bounce-back guy this week. Justin Forsett did not have a great game. Joe Flacco threw for about 100 yards.
But we saw that Denver defense
was
legitimate, so I looked for Forsett to bounce back.
Would you start Flacco in any streaming situations?
I absolutely would.
Because of the matchup?
Yes.
All right, let's move on to the Cowboys and the Eagles. What stands out for you guys from this game?
A lot of points. That's what stands out for me. I think.
Is that just what we're going to say every time the Eagles play somebody this year?
Yep, maybe. Well, they've got the highest Vegas line, but the Cowboys are also the type of team that is good at getting in those high-scoring games, and there's 2 quarterbacks, one on each side of the ball here, that can throw and keep throwing. So I expect low scoring in the first half and then a bunch of scoring in the second half.
I have a really good question for you, Jason. Last week, Romo was your start of the week.
Mm-hmm.
He lost Dez. He obviously performed in those last 2 drives without Dez, but those were kind of end-of-game 2-minute drills. What is your perception on Romo? I've been offered Romo in a couple of leagues. What are your thoughts on him as at the quarterback position this week and moving forward without Dez Bryant?
Well, this week, I think he's actually a pretty good option, even without Dez. I've got him, I believe, number 5 or 6 this week. There's going to be points that need to be scored. I expect that I think the Eagles are favored in this game, so you're going to be playing maybe from behind. This is a good opportunity for like a Lance Dunbar to add to Tony Romo's stats this week. Moving forward, I think it's going to be matchup dependent. Tony Romo is a great streaming option to me where you're going to play him some weeks and not play him some weeks. But a lot of teams that have Romo, they don't look to stream. They think he's plug and play, and I don't think he is plug and play. This week I like him a lot, last week. But if he's in a game where he's going up against Carolina, I'm not going to be starting Tony Romo.
Would you start Romo or Palmer this week?
Palmer.
Okay. And then, Mike, is there any chance that we see a transition happen in the backfield of Dallas to where you're seeing a lot of Joey Randall on first and second down, and you're seeing a lot of Lance Dunbar on third down? I'm just saying, transitioning away from any McFadden. Does Dunbar start to take some of the McFadden opportunities?
I don't think he'll take McFadden opportunithis, but this is still he's still in trial mode for
Dunbar.
All of them.
Okay.
For Joey Randall,
Right,
I think they're still trying to figure it all out. Randall, I think, looked the best of the running back between him and Darren McFadden last week. But honestly, if Darren McFadden looks better in getting some series and some snaps, I would not surprise me if they do a mid-game switch. If they just go completely hot hand.
I will say this too. This is important for listeners of the show who have Nelson Aguilar. Don't play him this week.
Yes.
He's going to get less snaps than he got last week, and he didn't perform. You need to wait and see with him. There weren't any rookie performances that did well last week. I think we said yesterday Amari Cooper led the rookie receivers with about 47 yards receiving. So Aguilar, I would send out the alarm and just wait. The pause maybe next week, maybe the week after.
I like Jason Witten a good bit in this game, and I also am willing.
I like Ertz.
I'm also willing to play Zach Ertz. The Cowboys. I still don't think that they're going to be great against the tight end. We'll see. Maybe
you know what's crazy is we don't like Dallas's defense very much. I mean, you have spoken out against it, Mike. They only gave up 190 yards in the air last week against the Giants.
Yeah,
they might be.
It could be
accidentally legit again this year.
The Giants are a team that can tend to do that, though, of just have a complete meltdown.
All right, let's talk St. Louis Rams, Washington Redskins. Everybody's matchup of the week. The Foles-Cousins battle that we've all been dreaming of. This is right up there with Brady Manning. They're 1-0. The Rams are 1-0. Foles was okay last week. I mean, they beat Seattle, and they scored a lot of points to beat Seattle. So is there anybody you're starting in this game from the St. Louis side? And tell us about the running back position, because Mason should be back. Cunningham had a good week.
That's the position that I think you're going to be starting this week. I think Trey Mason, all expectations are that he's going to be back, and he's been practicing enough where I think he's going to get the workload. Benny Cunningham is going to go into the background. Trey Mason is definitely a startable player this week. He's pretty much the guy from both teams that I feel comfortable starting. I mean, Pierre Garçon.
I would start Pierre Garçon
in
this week.
PPR, I will start Pierre
and in
Garçon.
DFS.
Yeah.
Because he's a good value. If you need another guy that could blow
tournament.
up. Yeah.
I still think the Rams defense is going to dominate Washington. So I'm not excited. Like, I like Pierre Garçon going forward, especially while Deshaun Jackson is out. And he's going to get He's going to get, 5 catches for, 55 yards. So there is a good baseline there where you hope for something big, and if not, you end up with something. But I think the Rams are really going to shut him down. And seeing what they did to Seattle, I expect that Kirk Cousins is going to be looking at the sky a lot.
I agree with that. I think Kirk Cousins is going to be under duress, which is why I like Pierre Garçon and Jordan Reed to take quick passes. Now, what do you guys do with Alfred Morris this week?
I play Alfred Morris.
Yeah.
So Jason and I disagreed right there, in case you missed it. I play Alfred Morris because he's, they have to take some of the pressure off of Cousins in a game where he's getting, if you can't establish the run, he'll be staring at the sky even more than Jason's anticipating. So for me, it's just going to be volume for Morris, and he tends to break off 2 or 3 10-yard runs, just against anybody.
And the Dolphins' defensive line, I mean, they added Ndamukong Suh, and last week when Washington played the Dolphins,
yeah, sure,
and Alfred Morris ran all over them.
Yep.
That's fair.
So I think the Rams' defensive line might be slightly better as a whole, their front seven, but that gives you some hope, at least if you're going to start Alf.
So, Jason, people who have Morris are probably staring down decisions that are things like Morris Woodhead.
Yeah, when it comes
because it's going to be somebody they drafted later to start over Morris.
Yeah, I was going to say that a lot of people that have Alfred Morris are going to have to start him because they took him early. But if you ended up with a Danny Woodhead or an Amir Abdullah type of player, those are guys I would start.
Let me ask you a few. Do you mind?
Sure.
Would you start Alfred Morris or Melvin Gordon?
I would start Alfred Morris. Melvin Gordon's got an equally bad matchup.
What about Doug Martin?
That's tough.
Is that the line kind of?
That's where it is, and I think I would go Martin over
David
Morris.
Johnson.
David Johnson.
That's the answer.
My
sing.
Yeah, my.
You wouldn't start David Johnson over Alfred Morris,
no.
would you? No way.
No.
No.
Rashad Jennings.
I really want to though. I'm not a Rashad Jennings believer this year, so
Trey
I think
Mason?
I would start Trey Mason over Alf.
I was just curious. All right, let's talk Seahawks.
Seahawks.
Yeah, take that, Seattle.
Yeah, Cardinal fan.
We
All
got
right.
you.
The Seahawks.
That's a good one.
Did you see the tweet that Russell Wilson put out last week?
What
The 1-0?
Woo.
What a
followed up by
idiot.
the Rams account.
Followed up by the 0-1.
Well, the Rams account tweeted and said, "Don't delete this."
I kind of like it when team accounts troll players.
Oh, I love it.
Very entertaining. Just silly. All right, Seahawks and the Packers in Lambeau. Russell Wilson,
rematch.
Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, no kidding. That was the curse catch.
Yeah,
Send
and last
him to
year
the Super Bowl in overtime.
Last year in Week 1, Seattle dominated.
Yeah, that's right. So Marshawn Lynch had an okay game last week. Fred Jackson got involved a little bit. Eddie Lacy, we like starting Lynch and Lacy, right?
Yeah, you still have to start him.
Yep.
And what were your guys' impressions of the Jimmy Graham tenure in Seattle after Week 1?
It was okay. The coverage on the touchdown was just horrific. It wasn't like a typical Jimmy Graham has outbodied someone. So I'm still not completely sold on the Jimmy Graham experiment up in Seattle. I mean, they decimated their offensive line to get him.
I'm still sold on Jimmy Graham as what he looked like last week. I think if you compare him to a Greg Olsen, to a Travis Kelce. To me, I see them about the same. I think he's going to get looked at a lot in the red zone, but I do not compare him to Jimmy Graham of last year. But he's better to me than I would rather have a Jimmy Graham than a Martellus Bennett or, the next tier of guys for sure.
All right, let's talk about another name. Well, we'll go through two things here. I think this game has so many fantasy implications that we have to mention it. So let's start with the wide receiver core of the Green Bay Packers. James Jones, Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams. Put them in order first. And then second of all, I read a stat about James Jones that he, in the last 24 games he's played with Aaron Rodgers, he has 20 touchdowns.
Yep. That's what he does.
Pretty good.
Is he scores touchdowns, and that's why he's so hard to start. I mean, last week we have the overreaction, because we saw 2 touchdowns.
One of the biggest waiver guys.
4 targets.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
4 targets. That's what he got. So if you are doing the pray and spray, hoping for the touchdown, James Jones he's a great option for that. But I'm still going to rank them. Devontae Adams, who led the team in targets, then Cobb, then James Jones.
I'm going Cobb, Devontae Adams, then James Jones. But I think that was well said on James Jones. He very well could get another touchdown this week or any week. It's just so hard to start a guy that isn't really used in the offense outside. It's like starting a tight end at your wide receiver position.
And one quick moment. Do we need to talk about Tyler Lockett in the fantasy sphere?
If you get return yards, I like him. If you don't get return yards, I think from just an offense perspective, they just don't use wide receiver enough to make him valuable. His highest upside is capped for me because of the offense. He'll have big blow-up games. Now, if you get return yards, you can use him in a weekly basis because he's going to accumulate enough of a baseline.
Dynamic player.
Yeah, I agree that if anybody can do it as a wide receiver up in Seattle, it's Lockett. But he's just Jason's right. The offense holds him back so much from being a real fantasy producer.
All right, last game for our matchup section before we go to the interview section here.
Did we skip the
Nope, we're going Jets and Colts.
the Dolphins Jags?
Oh, you're right. We got 2. Let's go then. Dolphins and Jaguars here. Dolphins and Jaguars. Give me the cliff notes on this game.
You're starting. I'm still starting Ryan Tannehill.
I am super excited about Yeldon. I just want to say that.
Yeah,
I want to see what Yeldon does.
I think Yeldon looked great, and we saw Alf last week really take it to the Dolphins' front 7. But so I like Yeldon, and I actually like Yeldon a good bit this week.
Does Devontae Parker do anything this week?
No.
It's still Devontae Parker is a hold. Yeah, I'm not dropping him if I have the room, but because it's going to take some time for him to emerge.
Will you be worried about Allen Robinson if you don't get a big game from him in week 2?
I'm not going to be super worried about him yet. I don't expect him to have a good game in week 2. I think that it's just a bad matchup.
Don't you just start off worried about a Jaguar if you own one?
Yeah, I mean, that. Honestly, I think that his limitation is the Jaguars' offense, and it's going to be one of those matchup things where you need a good one. I don't think this is a real great matchup for him. The only guy that I'm really excited to see in this is my boy Lamar Miller get back on track.
Yeah, I said the thing to watch is the play calling.
Yeah, the
from
play calling
Miami.
of the Dolphins, because it was ridiculous last week.
Mike,
Yes.
what's the latest on Julius Thomas?
The latest Julius Thomas, he's still going to miss some weeks. And I'm not holding Julius Thomas personally. I don't think he's.
I'd rather hold Antonio Gates.
I would much rather hold Antonio Gates than Julius Thomas. I don't think that Thomas is worth being a slug on your bench for the time that you have to hold him.
That being said, if you've got an IR, you can hold him without holding him, whereas
Yep.
there's
Yeah,
no
As opposed to a
suspension slot.
suspension. There's no suspension slot.
But
I'm
I
not
agree
expecting
with
much.
you. I think when he's back, he's not that great.
At what
anyways,
point
so.
does ESPN add a suspension slot just because of the way?
You know who can?
Josh Gordon.
NFL.com, their IR.
You can put suspended?
put suspended
Wow.
players in it.
Oh, come on now.
The
On
NFL.
NFL you can,
On
but not on
NFL.com.
ESPN.
support our suspended players?
Oh, my goodness. All right. That makes me want to talk about Darrell Washington, which is just unrelated to any of this stuff. But the Arizona Cardinals linebacker, what in the world? Do they just ignore his appeal? I mean, is he just not playing?
I had honestly completely forgotten about.
Like, he's a real player, like a Pro Bowler.
Yeah.
And they just didn't respond to his appeal.
There you go.
well,
Roger Goodell.
you do the things that
Yeah, fair
D-Wash
enough.
did.
All right, Jets at Colts, our Monday night game. Very excited about seeing this matchup because the Jets intrigue me with their coaching staff and their players. Ivory obviously has been a name we've talked up a lot, and I like the fact he gets workload, that he's running he's like this year's Ingram to me, where so far he looks the part. He looked the part in preseason, and then he performed 2 touchdowns. I think he was the first Jets running back with 2 touchdowns in like an opening game and I don't know, since like the 30s or something weird.
Factoid.
Yeah, and I got it wrong. But Fitzpatrick.
Factoid.
Factoid-ish.
Fitzpatrick and Luck. Is Luck going to jump Monday night game? Is he back?
Yeah, he's back. I don't love the matchup. And when I say he's back, I don't think he's back to being one of the best or second best of the week. But he's going to put up a couple touchdowns.
So Mike, we're going to pretend he puts up 3.
3?
We're going to say Andrew Luck throws 3.
Okay.
Who do they go to? 3 touchdowns. They land in the arms of
Moncrief,
really?
and Allen.
That is so much Moncrief love.
Yeah.
So they don't land in the arms of Andre Johnson.
Yeah, I'm just predicting.
Okay, so Allen I can buy. Yeah. Mike, give me the 3 names.
I would spread it out. I would go with 1 for each: Allen, Moncrief, and Johnson.
All right.
Maybe Gore gets 1.
Yeah, I could see Gore getting
one. For goodness
there.
sakes, Gore better do something, or I'm gonna start freaking out.
It's another
myself.
tough matchup. This is another guy where I'm looking to try to acquire Gore after this week. Just like last year, before the year, we talked about Eddie Lacy was going to get off to a slow start those first 3 weeks, and that you can trade for him afterwards. We were talking about that.
Here's the one problem I have, and I have to mention it on the show. I told Mike about it yesterday. There have been rumors about a reunion between the Colts and Ahmad Bradshaw.
That's true.
Now, I'm not saying it's happening, but they do have a major depth issue at the running back position, which means bringing somebody in makes sense unless you just want to run Josh Robinson as your only running back, and they've had so many problems with depth at running back. So I think there's a realistic chance they would bring Bradshaw back in the next few weeks, and if they did that, I would be very concerned about Frank Gore because Bradshaw is productive when he plays football.
And he goes immediately in. He knows the system. There's nothing for him to learn. He goes right in.
He becomes the third down guy immediately, in my opinion.
Now, let's take a look at just a interesting hypothetical I'm thinking over here. Carson Palmer has a huge game. Another huge game against the Bears. Andrew Luck has a
stinker against the Jets.
Carson Palmer, the trade sounds insane right now. But I would offer Carson Palmer.
No,
for
you
Andrew.
would not.
You
would offer it.
I would
okay.
send that trade to the Luck owner.
You about freaked me out.
No, I don't want.
You would get a middle finger back.
No, you would
from
you guys. But I'm telling you.
Yeah, there might be someone you could take
right.
advantage of.
So anybody else that jumps out? I mean, Decker and Marshall both had touchdowns last week. They have a very capable receiving core and a very good defense. I think this is going to be a very fun Monday night game.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one.
Love Brandon Marshall. I think he's an every week start.
I have found myself this year, because of our fantasy predictions, being a huge Jets fan.
That's funny.
I just really rooting for him.
Well, in part, Todd Bowles.
Yeah, maybe.
Coming over from Arizona.
And Ryan Fitzpatrick Fitzmagic is another one of those low percentage owned players who is a solid streaming.
And we're gonna talk about that in a moment in the full stream ahead section. All right, but right now we're going to take a few minutes and talk to Chris Meany of the Fantasy Sports Network in our weekly daily fantasy sports section.
The Daily Dose.
I love that drop. That's nice. All right, the fantasy footballers are excited to welcome in Chris Meany of the Fantasy Sports Network yet again. We're going to talk some DFS. Chris, how you doing?
Not bad, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we're happy to have you back. It was a fun week 1 for the DFS world. Give me some of your impressions after week 1. Who are some guys that stood out to you, and who were the winners in week 1?
Well, obviously Carlos Hyde on Monday night really stood out for me. This is a guy that I think if you were playing a Monday contest, and you could also, you can play just a Monday night contest on FanDuel. And I think, I know I was part of that. And I was back and forth, I think I want Adrian Peterson. I want DeMarco Murray. And here it was, Carlos Hyde, who had 31.2 FanDuel points. It just went off with 168 yards. I didn't see that coming. Now, Carlos Hyde was actually pretty good last year when he had some carries, 4 yards per carry, right? So, I mean, this kind of came out of nowhere, but I think if you had Carlos Hyde in your lineup, you were obviously very successful. Julio Jones, again, very successful, 30.6 points. That was from another Monday night as well. The Philly stack didn't really work out as I thought it would work out. It's still, I didn't think Bradford would throw that much as well. He didn't find the end zone as much as I would like him to. He's still a nice value price for this week. But I think, Carlos Hyde and Julio Jones, fantastic last week. Travis Kelce as a tight end was really good as well. So I think if you had any of those guys, you were in good shape. Even Matt Forte, 25.1 points, a solid play. And again, even if you didn't have Kelce, maybe you had Eifert. So Eifert was pretty solid too. I saw a lot of people that had Eifert in their lineups. They cashed.
I was going to ask you about Bradford this week because I thought he was a good value as well. I also was saddened because last week, if you had Bradford or Jordan Matthews, we were furious they didn't throw the red flag on that pass to Matthews because that would have made a huge difference for fantasy owners. I suppose if you had Matthews, it was kind of the opposite. You were really excited and happy.
So let's talk about some value players because if you're gonna cash big time in the grand prize tournaments, you need to have these sleeper low cost guys to pad your bench. Are there any value players who you are targeting this week?
Well, it's funny. I actually have a lineup in right now that I just love, and I do like Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, and Jordan Matthews are my three wideouts. Now, Antonio Brown is 9.2, Julio Jones is 8.8, Jordan Matthews is 7, and I still think at his price, it hasn't really jumped up. Last week he was 6.5. We saw what Bradford was able to do with Jordan Matthews, just over 100 yards. You guys touched on it. That would have been a touchdown. He would have found the end zone. He would have ended up with over 20 FanDuel points. That would have been great value at 6.5. I still think at 7, it's great value. I think what we saw in week 1 with Jordan Matthews is what we're going to see every single week. This guy's a mismatch. He's lining up in the slot. He's a huge body. Philadelphia is going to run a lot of plays this week or this year, not just this week. And I think he's going to get double-digit targets almost every single game. I think the same for Julio Jones. I think the same for Antonio Brown. I think all three of those guys are going to get double-digit targets. Now, to fill out the rest of my lineup, I needed some value. Again, Sam Bradford is still another nice play at 7.5. His price hasn't changed, so he's still 7.5. I also think that I could go Carson Palmer. I think Palmer is a good matchup at 7.8. All this guy's done since he's healthy is score at least 2 touchdowns dating back to last season. He gets at least 2 touchdowns. Last week he had over 300 yards and some scores. He was also a nice play, and he's only 7.8 in Chicago. Not a great secondary. So I like that. Those 2 quarterbacks, I think there's some value to be had there. And even with those 3 wide receivers, I can plug in Bradford. I can plug in Palmer. You got to go a little bit cheaper. Danny Woodhead is 6'2". What are we hearing about Danny Woodhead lately? That this guy's actually going to get some goal line carries? Sure, fine. Let's ride it out and see how it's going to happen. Also, you got to remember that you get half a point for a catch. Danny Woodhead could catch. He's getting some passes. He's catching in the backfield. It's not a bad price at 6'2". I love Ivory at 6'9" as a running back as well in Indianapolis. Not a strong running defense, but we saw from Ivory in week 1 that he got a lot of play, and that's what I'm looking for. Guys that are going to get a lot of targets, a lot of plays, can catch in the backfield. And then my tight end is Jordan Reed at $5,000. As long as Jordan Reed is healthy, and he is right now, he's a strong play. He's not somebody that I was targeting in drafts, annual leagues, redraft leagues, but he's somebody that I just love in DFS. It's much like Arian Foster I talked to you guys last week, is that when he's healthy, you can play this guy. And Jordan Reed at $5,000 and 11 targets last week is not a bad play for this week as well against St. Louis.
So for those listeners who are newer to Daily and that maybe they haven't played yet and they're thinking about playing, you're mentioning the different price ranges. What are the give us that price range of what a wide receiver 1 normally is, or what a real true sleeper is. What kind of numbers are regular for the guys that are being bought a lot, or the guys that are sleepers, and so that we can understand when you say a guy's 5,000, is that a great deal, or is that just, average?
So it is a good deal. So basically for guys that are new, you have $60,000 to spend. You need a quarterback, you need 2 backs, 3 wideouts, a tight end, a kicker, and a D. So that's an average of 6.6 $6,667. So your top quarterback, you're looking at the board here, your top quarterback is Aaron Rodgers at 9.3. Then it goes down to Luck at 8.9, Breeze at 8.9, Matt Ryan at 8.7. All these guys really have good matchups. I mean, Aaron Rodgers' matchup's not the best. There's some bodies missing in Seattle's defense, so it's okay. Andrew Luck at 8.9, Drew Brees at 8.9, Matt Ryan at 8.7. You're paying for them. I think it's an okay price, but once you get down, if you can find a quarterback that's below $8,000, I really feel like there's some value there. So Sam Bradford again at 7.5, Carson Palmer at 7.8. There's some value to be had there. I don't love it. Andy Dalton at 6.9. It's more of a contrarian play. So if you're going to play in big tournaments, you kind of want to be a little bit different. I mentioned I have those three wideouts, Julio Jones, Antonio Brown, and Jordan Matthews. I actually expect those guys to be heavily owned. If I want to go into a big tournament with thousands and thousands of people, I kind of want to maybe not pick those guys, maybe just have two of the three. And if you're playing in a cash game, a head-to-head, a 50-50 with a smaller pool of people, you want to pick your best roster. You're not looking for long shots. So, again, maybe I wanted in a big tournament, maybe I will go Andy Dalton. Why not at home? I'm trying to think that people will not play him. Maybe not a lot of people will plug in Andy Dalton. Maybe not a lot of people will plug in Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks, I mean, I'm getting questions on Twitter. Should I drop Brandon Cooks? No, you shouldn't drop Brandon Cooks. I mean, he had one bad week, right? I mean,
yeah, the
so now
overreactions.
people overreaction Monday. We get it all the time. So I think that Brandon Cooks may be a strong play, and he's got a great matchup. At 7.4, I think any wide receiver that's in the 7 mark is really, really nice because the average that you spend, as I mentioned, is just shy of $7,000. So you can make up some ground by getting a short guy. That's why I think Jordan Matthews at $7,000, again, is a nice play. I like Jarvis Landry at 7.1. I think he's going to get a lot of targets as well.
Let me ask you something, because I was running into this in some lineup building, especially in the big tournaments. Like you said, you don't want to pick everybody that everybody else is picking. You're just going to be lost in kind of the mire of everybody having those guys perform or underperform. But let me ask you this. As you build your rosters, there were times when I would put people together, and is it always important in your mind to maximize the 60,000, or have you built rosters that are falling just short because you like the values and you like the ability for these guys playing? I mean, there are some players this week that I think Terrence Williams at 6,300, John Brown at 6,200, lineups that you build and you might end up 1,000 or 2,000 short. I mean, do you always go back to the drawing board and then move guys up based on the FanDuel pricing, or do you just kind of go with who you think is going to succeed even if you end up $1,000 or $2,000 short?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And guys have come in here all the time on the FanDuel show, whether it's football, baseball, hockey, basketball, and they're just like, oh, wow, I left like $800 off the board, but I like this lineup, so I went back in to tinker with it. If you like the lineup, you like it. You got to roll with it. You don't have to spend all the 60, and you don't need to feel like, you know, you're kind of cheating by not spending the 60. Man, maybe I should have spent the extra 1,000. If you like these guys, and the lineup I told you before with, you know, those three wideouts, I still left $600 off the board. It is what it is. I didn't want to do it. So you're right. I mean, you get your Terrence Williams at 6.3. That's a fantastic play today, this weekend. I mean, he's the number one guy now without Dez, right? And Dante Moncrief, he got a double-digit targets last week. He's $6,000. I expect the Colts, after going into Buffalo and really the offense is stalling against a great defense. No disrespect to the Jets defense. They are missing Cromartie most likely, but you know what? Indy's probably going to put up some points at home. Andrew Luck may be mad. So it's okay to leave some money off the board. You don't really need to feel like you're wasting your picks.
Yeah, that's a hard
here and there.
Yeah, that can be a hard mental thing to do when you see that, because you think you need to maximize, but you're really, I mean, just like in regular fantasy football, not daily, it's not, you know, when you think about drafting, right, before the season, it's not always about, okay, I just need to take, you know, you imagine drafting on ESPN, you see the board that they put out, you're not always, you know, these values are set by guys predicting positions the same way a draft would predict positions. So I appreciate that perspective, and we thank you very much for coming on the show and giving our listeners some more insight into DFS for week 2 and some values, and I think we got a lot of valuable daily information today. So thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate it.
I'm going to go get a bunch of Jordan Reed.
Anytime. I really appreciate you guys having me on. And again, for people that are just new, if you have any questions, any DFS questions, don't be afraid to hit me up on Twitter at Chris Meany. I'll be sure to help out best I can. And good luck to everybody playing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris.
All right. Cheers, guys.
All right, thank you, Chris, for joining us and talking some daily fantasy. I think I'm very excited for week 2 and to see what we have in store. So the last segment,
Don't forget, go to FanDuel.com and
Yes.
use our promo code BALLERS.
Ballers.
Nice.
That's just too fun to say. I was looking on one of the fan threads, and there were a lot of people who wrote dollars, ballers.
Very nice.
That's funny. But yes, click the microphone and use promo code BALLERS
All right,
for new FanDuel
it's
users.
time for full stream ahead, guys.
Yeah.
All right, so talk to us about this section, Mike.
All right, so here's what we're going to do here because we like streaming guys. Now, the ultimate stream guy this week is still Carson Palmer. He's not owned in every single league. I believe he's owned at around 64% in ESPN the last time I looked. So I'm telling you right away, he's the number one option for me this week you go to.
In terms of streaming quarterback.
Yes, but for our particular game that we are going to play, I'm trying to look at guys who are owned at sub 60%. So these guys are available 40% of leagues, which is, to me, a high amount. So this week, guys, I'm looking at possibly streaming Andy Dalton at home. It's a matchup against San Diego. Joe Flacco has a great matchup but he does have to travel over to the West Coast against Oakland. Jay Cutler, Teddy Bridgewater, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and Colin Kaepernick are all guys who are very low percentage owned quarterbacks who can produce for you this week. Now,
Who's your favorite of that group?
my official stream that I'm picking up and playing this week is Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton is owned in under 21% of leagues in ESPN. He's at home. He's versus San Diego. San Diego has a decent passing defense. I'm aware, but they gave up 246 and 2 to Matt Stafford in a Lions team that was not playing very well, especially through a passing offense.
And it shouldn't be understated the impact of having another red zone weapon in Tyler Eifert. He scored 2 touchdowns last week, and a defense's main priority is taking away A.J. Green and the big play from A.J. Green, and having another kind of a 1A, 1B, and that's what Eifert is, by the way. He's the 1B on that team from a passing perspective. So I think that's an interesting play this week.
And we don't talk about him as a weekly play, but Marvin Jones is a guy who can burn you. He's a guy who can streak down the field and has good hands. I'm saying if you want a guy to run a 9 route opposite of AJ Green, you watch the film on Marvin Jones. I'm telling you, Marvin Jones can do it.
Okay. Jason, you look kind of like.
Oh, I was waiting. I wasn't sure if you were introing me. I'm going for
Jason Moore.
Yeah. I'm taking for my full stream ahead pick
going.
at quarterback. Fitzmagic, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I was very close to going Andy Dalton, but I was scared away by the San Diego D. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored on a fun Monday Night Football game. He's got weapons to throw to in Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. Threw 2 touchdowns last week. When we stream, we're looking for 200 yards and 2 TDs.
Exactly. That's all you need.
Yeah. When you use that strategy and you've got a good lineup outside, you just look for that. The Colts defense, I think they're all right, but they're no San Diego. With the weapons in tow, Fitzmagic is my pick of the week.
I'm going to go with Colin Kaepernick. One part what I saw last week, one part Pittsburgh defense. He didn't throw any touchdowns last week, but he looked like he was going to stay in the pocket. He ran 7 times for 41 yards. You're always going to have this baseline with Colin Kaepernick, and that's really something you want to assure yourself of in a streaming situation is that you're not going to get completely burned. I mean, like, we're going to be wrong sometimes when you stream. I mean, that's part of – but you're going to be wrong sometimes when you play Andrew Luck, as you saw last week. So Colin Kaepernick, I'm going to go with him as my full stream ahead pick of the week. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of mailbag.
Mailbag.
Yeah.
All right, this one comes in. Whoa, what was that?
Bang.
Wow.
Yeah.
He didn't take his medicine. Justin in Coffee House, USA.
That's a what?
I want to go there.
He must be at a coffee house. He currently has the Philadelphia Eagles defense, and he was wondering if it's worth it to stream defenses week to week.
Yep.
He was thinking of picking up the Tennessee Titans defense this week, but he's not sure if he should drop Philadelphia for the long term. Now, Philly plays the Cowboys, and Tennessee, I believe, plays Cleveland. And so who would you start from those, and what is your philosophy on defensive streaming?
Always stream play the best matchup. There's no defense as good as they are that you play week in, week out. I would like the Tennessee Titans in this because Johnny Manziel was named the starter. I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity for turnovers. And even though I expect that the Eagles could score a higher amount because I think they've got a higher probability of scoring a defensive touchdown or a special teams touchdown, I also think the Cowboys are going to put up a lot of points, and I don't expect the Browns to. So I like Tennessee here.
All right, fair enough. Kenneth in Miami says this. Who should he start for week 2 as his RB and his flex? He has CJ Anderson. Well, okay. The boat might have left the dock on that already. Alfred Morris, Latavius Murray, LeGarrette Blount, and Benjamin Cunningham. So let's just pick a flex out for him outside of CJ Anderson. So Morris, Murray, Blount, Cunningham. I think it's Murray for me.
Yeah, I would flex Murray of this group. And if you did not play Anderson, then I would play Alf and Murray from this group.
There you go. Let's go ahead and talk to Chris here. Chris says in the flex he has Crowell, Blount, or David Johnson. Who would you play? Crowell could have a bounce-back week. He has a good matchup. Blount is sketchy against the Bills. I would not play Blount. And is it too early to risk playing David Johnson?
Hey.
I think you can play David Johnson, but I actually expect the bounce back from Crowell going up against the Titans, so I would go Crowell.
I was going to say PPR might change the equation a little bit.
I agree. If the answer for this is Crowell for floor, David Johnson for ceiling. It depends on what your team needs. But David Johnson could explode in your face for 1 point.
Yep. All right, Brad in St. Louis. Should he trade Tevin Coleman for Alfred Morris? He already has Lamar Miller, Jeremy Hill, Roy Halou, and David Johnson. If you already have those guys, my opinion is hang on to Tevin Coleman and see what his ceiling is.
Yeah, I think I would hold Coleman at this point.
Yep. Jason, you agree?
Yeah, I think that's good strategy.
Brian in San Diego. He says he has a very nice problem deciding between Joseph Randle, Allen Robinson, Terrence Williams, and David Johnson. I don't know if that's nice.
There are no nice problems, Brian. These are serious.
That's true. This is fantasy football.
That's a problem.
Yeah. Who's the choice? If it's a flex, who do you go with?
I would rank them Joseph Randle, Terrence Williams, Allen Robinson, David Johnson.
Completely agree with you.
I agree.
All right. Luke in Illinois. Who should he start in his flex between these players? It's a standard league. James Jones, Julian Edelman, and Terrence Williams. I go Williams.
Yeah, I think I would go Williams, Jones, Edelman for my rankings.
Really?
In a standard, I would do Williams, Jones, Edelman.
I could see that. But Williams is the clear answer.
All right. You got a little extra footballers today. We got a little bit of a longer show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Enjoy the weekend. We're very excited for week 2. And hopefully your teams have a successful week and you come back here on Monday. We'll be going through all of the games, breaking down the waiver wire, doing what we do. Make sure you check us out on the web, thefantasyfootballers.com. Download that Sports Manias app. It's a really good tool. And check us out on Twitter at the FF Ballers. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure this week.
I wish I could say the same.
Oh!
Go check out Join the Foot. Seriously, join our community. It's a good time for everybody.
Peace.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers.